Okay, so like I said, let's write some functionalities for our forms to be able to talk to one another. Now, before then, let's just debug this application to see how they are performing so far. Alright, so I'll just hit on the start here and it should start debugging. Alright, so as you can see, the splash screen loaded successfully though, but the progress bar is not moving. Everything is just static like that. Yeah, so we need to write functionalities for it. Okay, so let's dive right to do that. Now, with a splash screen, the timer control that we added in the project is what we are going to use to do the magic or do the trick. Okay, so we will double click on this one here, select it, and then double click on it, and then say that if the timer is ticking. Okay, so this is a tick event that we've assigned to the timer. So whenever the timer is ticking, okay, the clock is moving and then it is ticking, we should fetch the progress bar. So let me go back to the splash screen and then make sure that I rename this thing to progress bar. Okay, so progress bar, the name is progress bar. Okay, good. Now let me go back to the tick event for the timer. So I'll just say that whenever the timer is ticking, fetch the progress bar and then increment it. So there is a method that is associated with the progress bar called increment. So I'll say dot increment, and then I'll open parentheses, then I'll pass in 1. So this is the rate at which the progress bar should increment, should move. Okay, 1, 2, 3, like that. Okay, so it should increment by 1. Now, whenever this is incrementing, I want to fetch that label called LBL percentage, this one. Yeah, so I make sure I named it like so. Go back. So I want to fetch that LBL percentage and then set its text property. So dot text equal to the progress bar dot value. So the value of the progress bar, okay, should now be assigned to the label here. Alright, so in case the progress bar is currently at 80, the label that is on the form, which is this one here, would be 80 as well. Alright, good. So let me just append the percentage symbol. So I'll just say end, and then I'll open double quote, then I'll fix in the percentage sign like that, and you are good to go. Now we need to keep track of the value of the progress bar. So we will say that if progress bar, okay, dot value is equal to 100, we need to stop the timer. So we will say timer 1 dot stop, and then timer 1 dot enabled equals false. Alright, then what we can do is that we can hide the current form, which is me.hide, and then show next form, which is next is the frm login dot show. So from the splash screen we want to move to the login. Okay, alright, good. Now let's go back and do one thing, that the design view of the splash screen, and select the form itself and double click on it so that we assign the load events to the form. So whenever this form is starting, whenever the form is loading, we want to enable the timer. So timer 1 dot enabled is equal to true, and then timer 1 dot start. Yes, so we've been able to enable the timer, and then start the timer. Alright, so let's box on. Now that we've been able to do this, let's go and then let's run the application once again and see what we've achieved so far. Good. So as you can see, now the progress bar is working. Alright, You see the percentage here, the value is being appended to this label, right? Good. Exactly. So when it finishes loading, it needs to show the login screen, and that is exactly what is happening. Good. We are making progress. Let's box on. Alright. So now that we've been able to implement the splash screen, whenever we want to log a user into our system, we need to first check if the user is already registered in our system or is part of our system already. So it means that we should find a way of registering the person, right? So that is why we created the registration form. So for now, let's work on the registration form. After that, we come back and then work on the login, okay? So I'll go back to the registration form and then make sure that all these controls are named as intended or as appropriate. Okay, so txt first name. So when you go to the name property, here is there txt last name, like that, and then username, the password, and then confirm password, btn register, and then let me also make sure that yes, you're all using the character password character field. Okay, now we want to now connect our application to a database, right? So first of all, we need connection string. Okay, so we need connection string, yes, and then we also need database and a table to store the users. All right, so this, we need a connection string. Now the connection string, what it does is that it gives your application an access to the database management system that you are using. So in our case, we are going to use XAMPP. Okay, we are going to use XAMPP, so we will learn how to connect XAMPP to our application. All right, so let's go and then do that. For security reasons, okay, we are going to try to obscure the connection string a little. Okay, normally when a third party gets to see your source code and then the connection string is seated right inside the source code like that, sometimes it can be very costly. Okay, all right, so we will try and then try to hide it a little. So we will go to the project on the menu tab here and then select YouTube. The project. Okay, when you go there, you see YouTube registration and login. The last option, select it, and then to bring you to the application's what property. Alright, so amongst the options on the left pane here, we are going to select settings, and then with this, let's give a name to the settings that we want. Okay, so in this regard, we want a connection string, so we say connection string. Okay, and this is too lengthy, so let me just say con string, and then the type of these settings should be a connection string. So I'll select this and then go down there and I'll see connection string. I'll select that one, and the scope of these settings that we are creating or making, it should be the entire application. I'll just drop this thing down and then the application is selected. Now what is the value? The value is the string that will be passed as a connection string wherever we call the connection of MySQL. Okay, and that is what will be able to identify the database, the server, and all those things that we are using in our system. So we are going to say that server is equal to localhost. So the server that we are using is currently a localhost, not a live server. So we are just saying that server is equal to localhost. Now database should be equal to, let's say the name of our database is YouTube underscore db. We have not created that here. We will do that in a bit. I will terminate this one as well by fixing in a semicolon, and then the user of this current database is equal to the root user. So yours might be a bit different, right? Now by default, when you use XAMPP, the default user is the root user. Okay, so that is why the user here is what, root. Now password, we need to tell our system that okay, the database that you are trying to talk to, either there is a password on it or there isn't any password. So In our case, there isn't any password, so I'll just say that password equals to, then I'll just leave it like that because there is no password. If there was to be a password, I would have to point the password maybe 123 GB like that. Okay, but here's the case, there isn't any password, so I'll just hit enter and then we are good to go. We've been able to establish the connection string. So anytime that we want to make reference to this, we will refer to the application as or the settings as my settings. Okay, my.settings, and then we can access the connection string that is here. We will see how to do that. Okay, so let me just close this. We will come back to it if we need it. Alright, now that we've been able to establish a connection string, now let's go and then launch our XAMPP so that we can create the actual database and the tables that we need. Then we can come back and then work on the registration. Okay, alright, so I'll go to start menu and then search for XAMPP. I'll just select this. Alright, now you have to make sure that these two models are started, Apache and then MySQL. Now this is the local server, it is acting as a local server, this, and then this is the database management system that we are using, MySQL. Okay, and it will enable us to be able to create database, create table, insert records, select, and all those things like that. Okay, so just make sure that these two models are started by just clicking on the start. I've already started mine. Okay, that's why you are seeing stop. Under normal circumstance, you should see start and then start for this one. So you start them like you're having for this. So when I should start the Mercury, you see that it will change to what? A stop something. You see? Good. So I don't want that. So let me just allow access and then disable this thing. So please make sure that the two are selected. Okay, are started. Now I can minimize this. Oh no, let me go back. So we want to go to the back end of our database management system. So I'll just hit on the admin here. Okay, and then it will open in the default browser. So my default browser is Firefox. Now we are interested in creating a database. For now, if you are new to the interface, in later videos I'll try and then take you through. Okay, but for now just know that this left pane here holds all the data or displays all the database that are currently inside this DBMS. Okay, alright, by default you should say something less than this, but I have created projects and then I have created databases as well, so that's why you are saying that there are so many databases here. Okay, good. And then on the top here, these are functionalities that you can work with, but for now we are interested in the SQL tab. So structured query language, we want to write query, so we'll click on that. And then the first thing we want to do is what? Create a database. Okay, so we will use the create command. So we will say create database. So what do you want to create? We want to create a database. Alright, and then the name of our database is YouTube, the one we gave in the connection string, YouTube underscore DB. Then I'll terminate it like that. Then I'll navigate to the down part and then I'll scroll down to the down. I just click on go. Alright, and then once you've seen a green check, it means that your query was successful. Now when you come back here, you should see that the database you just created is here, YouTube underscore DB. Okay, alright, so we can box. So now let's create our table. So now that we've created the database, let's use it. So we will say use YouTube underscore DB, then we terminate it. Now we are going to create a table. We use the create command once again, but this time around we will say create table, and let's say users underscore TB. Okay, then I'll open parenthesis or bracket, then I'll terminate this, then I'll come back inside of the opening and closing of the brackets, and then I'll hit enter so that I'll create more space. I can work with it. Okay, so the first thing that we want is the ID. We will need a unique identifier in our table so that all the records that are in there will be uniquely identified. So we need some sort of ID which will be of the data type integer, and the length should be 11, and then it shouldn't be now. Okay, so not now, and then it should be auto increment. So the DBMS should increase the ID for us. So when it starts, for instance, from 1, the next record that comes, it should move to 2 automatically. And I'll separate it with a comma. Now, on our form, on our registration form, you could see that we have first name, last name, username, and password. For this one, we are not interested in this, okay? Alright. So let's create those columns as such. So first name, which will be of the data type varchar, variable character. The length should be 50, and then it shouldn't be now, comma. Then I'll come last name, should be varchar, and then the length should be 50. This one should also not be now. Then I'll say username, which should be varchar as well. So the varchar accepts both variables and characters. Okay, so let's say that this one should also be 50, and then it shouldn't be now. Yeah. Okay, now we need the user password. So let me just say password, and then this one should also be varchar. Now let me say 100 for this will be okay. Then not now, comma. Now before the database management system will be able to know that okay, this column here is the ID and it should be unique, we need to tell it that that is a primary key. So we use a syntax called primary key. Okay, and then we pass the ID to it like that, and then we are good to go. Now let's just highlight the whole of this query and then click on go here. Good. So having this returned successfully means that, or green check here means that our query was successful. Now if we should refresh, click on this reload button here. Yours might be a bit different, so take note. So expand our YouTube database. You can see the users table in there. Okay, right. So when you expand again, you can see the columns. Okay, all right. So let's box on. Let me just collapse this. Then let's get going. Okay, now we've been able to create our database and our table. Let's go back to our application. All right. We will see how to connect to this particular database and then talk to this table inside of the database as well. Now, like I said, in our connection string, we specify that the server should be a local host. Now, this server indication here, okay, 127.0.0.1, that is actually a loopback address. Okay, so this is a bit of networking. Okay, this is equally in a textual form localhost. So the server, when it says server is localhost, it knows that when it translates it, it will translate it to 127.0.0.1. So please take note of that. Okay, all right. So let's, and then the user as well, we specify the user to be the root user. So when you should come to the home page, and then you go to user account here, you see that there is actually a user called root. Yes, get it. So root here. So this is what we are currently using. Okay, all right. So let me just go back. Okay, now let's go back to our application. Now to be able to write MySQL queries, we need to add a reference of MySQL library to our application. By default, it is not included in the Visual Studio application. Okay, so I'll just go to the Solution Explorer. I'll right click on the project name and then go to add, and I'll choose reference here, and then I'll select this particular one, but I have already worked with this in some projects, so that is why you are currently seeing it here. So if yours is not there, you have to browse, click on browse, and then navigate to wherever you're having this file. This file I will include it in the description section of this video. Okay, so please you can just click on the link, go and download it, and then have it on your laptop, on your machine, so that you can use it in your project as well. Alright, so I'm just going to select this and then just click on it. Is checked now, so I just click on OK. And then when you open this references thing here, you can see that it has been added. So there it is. So it means that now we can work with MySQL library. So I'll just double click on this register button. So what it means that I'm saying that whenever this register button is clicked, insert the record or the data that the user has provided into our database here, into our database, specifically this table here. Okay, all right. So before then, let's go to on top of the application here, and then so by default it should be something like so. When you put the cursor at the beginning, just hit enter so that it will create a space at the top, and then say that import mysql.data.mysql client. This is the first thing you're supposed to do here, so that you'll be able to use the commands that are available in this library. Okay, now let's come back to our button click event. Whenever this button is clicked, let's check if all those input boxes or text boxes are empty or not. If they are empty, it means that there isn't any value. We shouldn't allow the user to insert empty value inside our database, so we need to check that. Alright, if it is not empty, means there is a value, then we can go ahead and insert it. So what we do is that we say I don't want to be repeating txt first name and dot text is equal to, I don't want to be doing that. So I'm just going to dim some few variables and assign the various values to them. Okay, so I'll dim first name as string, then I'll say it should be equal to txt first name dot text dot trim, and the trim will remove all the white spaces. Okay, so for instance, if the user should input their username like maybe James, and then instead of just doing something like that, they will instead do maybe space and then James and then another space like that. This is not what we want. These are white spaces. We need to get rid of it. Okay, we need to get rid of it. So the trim will do that for us. It will trim both the left and then the right. Alright, good. Now let's do for the remaining one. So dim last name as string should be equal to txt last name as text the trim. So dim username as string equal to txt username dot text dot string, and then for the password, dim password as string equal to txt password dot text dot string. Now dim confirm password as string equal to txt confirm password dot text dot string. Okay, so we've practically captured all the fields that are there. Let's just look through all this and then check if it is empty or not. So check, this is a comment. Okay, so check if text boxes are empty or not. So to be on the safer side, let me just loop through. So I'm just going to say that for each, I don't want to be repeating if, saying that if first name equal to first name equal to empty and last name equal, I don't want to be doing that. So let me just say that this is actually a better way anyway. So for each item as control, Okay, in me.controls, hit enter to create the next block, and then I'm going to say that if the type of item is text box, okay, if it is a text box, because there are different controls on the form. So if it is a text box, when you come back to the registration, you could see that there's a button here, there's a label here, and all those things. But we are saying that if the type of control that is on this is a text box, okay, then let's continue. If the type of item is text box, then another if condition. So if item dot text, if the item dot text equals to empty, so we are fetching the item. So for instance, if it is the text box here, the first name text box here, its text property here is empty, okay. So if the text property of the item is empty, then you can say that, okay, good. It's supposed to be a double E. So if the text property is empty, then you can say MSG box, all fields are required. Then I'll go outside double quote and say VB exclamation, just a warning. Then I can return this return, so that the rest, when I return here, the rest of the codes beneath will not execute, okay. Alright, now let me exit the loop here so that it will not keep looping through every item every single time. Alright, so let me just return. Alright, else it means that if the item here is not empty, then there's actually a value, then it will get past this place and then come here. Else we can say that insert record inside into the users table, okay. Alright, now let's just print a simple message to see that what we did is working. So let's say it's working, it is working, okay. Then let me say VB information. Alright, good. Now I don't want to start the application right from the beginning, okay. So I'll just go to project and then select the last option here, and then choose the application and then change the starter form to the registration form. I want this one should be the first form now. I just want that one to load. Okay. Okay, so this is what we have now. When I hit on the register, I'm expected to get a warning. Good. So as you can see, it is prompting us that all fields are required. Now let's try to enter some value. Let me say next. Let me just hit on register again. Again, it is saying that all fields are required. Good. Now let's enter for all. So username, let me just say that. How this, and then I have that. And I click on register. It is working. Good. It means that all the values are provided. And let me close this and then close this one as well. We'll come back to it later. Alright, so now that all the conditions here are working, let's go ahead and insert the data into our database. So first of all, I'm going to say that we need to create an instance of the connection string. So we will say that dimcon, which is a short form for connection, is equal to new MySQL connection. Then I'll open the parentheses. Now this takes the connection string that we defined in our settings. So we refer to the settings as my, and then we bring dots, and then settings dots. Then you see the connection string variable that we gave it over there. Good. Now that we've created an instance of the connection, let's just say that try, and then open this connection. So we've opened a try catch block. It is very important, so that in case there is an error, the try catch can handle it for us, so that our application will not just shut down unexpectedly. So we'll say that try, and then say open the connection. So con.open. So now that we've opened the connection, let's use the connection. So we say using con. Okay, using the connection, let's deem a command that we can use to insert into the database. So deem command. So let me actually shorten this to cmd. It's equal to new MySQL command. Okay, so this command will allow us to be able to insert data or record inside our database. So it takes two arguments, or yes, it takes two arguments. So the first one is the query. So the query is always in a string format. So we open double quotes, and then we go outside the double quotes, and then bring comma, and then we put the connection instance variable over there. So we are passing the query alongside the connection string to the command. Now we are going to say that insert into users TB. So this is the name of a table inside the database. Okay, insert into the users TB, open bracket. What are the column names? The first column name is what? The first name, right? For the ID, it is auto increment, so the database will handle it for us. So the first name, comma, last name, comma, username, comma, username, and then password. Right? Okay, let's go outside the bracket and then say that we want to insert these values, the values that are coming. So I can equally say that, can equally do something like that, and then I'll put a double quote. Then I can call first name. Okay, it's supposed to be a plus plus. Now say first name. Okay, first name. Okay, but I don't want to do this. I want to use parameterized queries. Now what parameterized queries does is that it prevents what we call SQL injection to some extent. Okay, it prevents it. Now when someone that is not having a good intention gets access to your system, the person might try finding his or her way around the system. Okay, so instead of putting actual values, maybe the username is supposed to be maybe John, instead of putting John, the person will write actual query like what we are doing, select statement, insert statement. We don't want the person to do that. So one way we can prevent that is using parameterized queries, and this is how it is done. So I'll delete the whole of this, and then I'll implement what we call placeholder. So at, and then I'll represent the first column with a variable called maybe f name, comma, then at l name, comma, at u name, comma, and then at u pass. Okay, so these are actually representing this one, but the values are not passed yet. These are just placeholders. We will later pass the value in a different way. Okay, all right, good. Now let's go to the next line and then say that with cmd dot parameters. Okay, let's just hit enter. Okay, so we are saying that this command, there are some parameters over there. Use it and then say that add with value. So dot add with value and then open double quotes. Now we are now going to call the placeholders that we defined. So the first one was at f name, and then we now call the first name variable that we declared at the top there, first name. Okay, so that's add with value at l name, comma, then let's say last name. Right, that add with value, then at uname, then go outside and username. Okay, then dot add with value, then at upass, go outside and say password. Okay, let me press check upass. Okay, upass, that is a uname and then upass. Okay, so we've been able to capture all the placeholder. Okay, now let's come outside this with statement and say that deem status as integer. Okay, now let's execute a command. So we are going to say that status equal to cmd.execute non-query. Should execute a non-query. Okay, non-query. Now what this will do is that it will fetch a command here, look for the parameters that have been defined, all the placeholders, and then it will execute it. Alright, so whenever it executes it, it will return 1 or 0, so a true or false value. So we are trying to store that true or false value inside the status variable here. Then we can use our if condition to check if the query was successful or not. So we are going to say that if status is greater than, not status but say status, greater than, so if status greater than 0, then hit enter, then it means that something actually went through. So we can say MSG box registration, so record inserted. Alright, go outside and say VB information. Alright, else, let me just copy this. No, let me just copy that and then just paste it and say record not inserted. So let me change this to VB exclamation. Then final part, let's say that whatever exception that may occur, we need to get to see. So let's call this instance variable of the exception class and then say that msg box ex.toString, so it should print it in a readable format that we can understand. Okay, and then finally let's just say that con.dispose and then con.close. So whenever you open a connection in your query, you need to close it after everything. When a connection is open, that can cause your system. So let's go and then test what we've done so far. Alright, let's go and test what we've done so far. Right, so I'll start the application again. Okay, so let me just input actual values and see. So Ernest, So the username is the same as the password. Okay, I mean the password is the same as the username. Okay, so let me just hit on register. I'm supposed to see a positive message. If that is not true, then we have a problem somewhere. So let me just hit on register. Good. So record inserted successfully means that we've inserted a record. Now let's go back to our database and check. I'll go to my browser and then I'll go to the SQL tab and I'll say use YouTube underscore db. So use that particular database so we can perform queries on it. So I'll say select all from users underscore tb. I'll terminate it. I'll navigate to the down part and just hit on go. Good. So the record we inserted is right here. It means that our system is working as intended. Alright, now that we've been able to insert record, let's see how best we can fetch a record. Okay. Alright, so let me go back to the application and then let me hit on close here and terminate it. Now we will go to the login part. Okay, the login form. And then whenever the user hits on login, okay, let's go to the top of this particular class and then import MySQL like we did for the other one. So import MySQL.data.MySQL client. Alright, now let's come back to our click event. Dim username as string. So username.text.string. So we are practically doing the same thing we did for the registration. So dim password as string equal to txt password.text.string. Alright, so now let's just say that for each item as control in me.controls, so I'll hit enter and then I'll say that if type of item is text box, okay, then I'll hit enter. Then say another if item.text equals empty, so double quotes, then I say msg box. So let's print a message and say that enter your credentials to continue. So VB exclamation just to serve as a warning. Okay, so let me exit the loop here so that it will not loop forever. Okay. Alright, so if it is empty, then let's just print this and then return so that the rest of the code beneath will not execute. Now if it is not like that, else, then let's go ahead and select from the database or the table. Let me say table for now. Okay, so I'll just say that dim con equal to new MySQL connection. Okay, then I'll pass in my settings connection string. Okay, now I'll just say that try and then I'll hit enter. Okay, now inside the try statement, let's try and open the connection. So con.open. So we are opening the connection. I'll hit enter. Now once the connection is opened, let's try and then say that we want to select. We're writing a select query to select whatever the user is inputting. So for instance, if the user so we are done with this, let's close it. If the user inputs, for instance, John here, and then password as maybe 123, we need to query that against what we have inside our table or database. So let me go back. So how do we do that? You are going to say that there's actually another command that is available in MySQL called data adapter. So that's what we are going to use for this particular purpose. So we say that dim data adapter. Okay, so let me say adapter, dim adapter as, let me say, equal to new MySQL data adapter. Now this also takes two arguments. One is a query and one is a connection. So I'll go outside the double quote and then pass the connection. And then I'll say that select all from users underscore tb where username equals to @uname. So this one too, let's implement a placeholder here. Then username and upassword equal to @upass. Alright. Okay, let's come to the next line and say that adapter dot select. Okay, so let me do it like so. So I'll say with adapter dot select command dot parameters. Select command dot parameters. I'll just hit enter. I'll say that dot add with value, and then I'll pass in the uname, which is a placeholder, and then I'll fetch the username, that is the variable we declared at the top, and then dot add with value, and then upass, which is the placeholder for the password. So I'll say password here. Alright, now having done this, let's implement another functionality. Okay, so what this data adapter is currently doing is that they have selected all the records that is inside the table and currently holding it inside this variable, but how it is represented, we cannot really work with it. So we need another command called data table. Okay, so the data table is able to represent the data in a form of rows and columns so that we can look through the rows. Okay, alright, so we need what we call a data table to be able to do that. So we are going to say that dim data table, or let me say dim table equal to new data table. Okay, then I'll say that adapter, now that we've created an instance of the data table, we say that fetch the adapter instance, and then say dot fill the table that we've created with whatever you are having. Alright, now we can look through this table and see if there is any record. So what we can do is that, so look through the table to check if there is any matching record. So we say that if table dot rows dot count, so these are actually methods that are available or associated with the table, so it will do the looping for us, is greater than 0. It means that if there is any row inside the database or there is any matching value, then it means that this count variable will be greater than what? 0. It means that there is a record. Then we can say that MSG box logged in successfully, and then let's say VB information. Okay, all right, then we can, okay, so VB information, that we can say that let's hide the current form. Okay, so when the login is successful, we don't want to leave the user right on the login. We need to redirect the user. So we say hide, or let me say, just say that redirect user. So I'll say that me.hide. So hide this current form and then show the dashboard. So frm dashboard the show. So if now that we've checked for whether the record is available, we need to check if it is not available as well. So we say that else. So I'll just fetch this and then come and paste it here and say that incorrect credentials. So this one will be VB exclamation. No, shouldn't be exclamation, should be critical. So that to serve as sort of warning. Okay, so this is what we've achieved so far. Now let's come to the exception part and then print whatever exception that will be handled. So ex.to string. Now this ex is coming from this exception instance here. So this is a class on its own, and this variable here is serving as an instance of this class. Okay, all right, so what we can do is that finally, so this finally keyword means that whatever happened, whether there was an error or whatever, this part of the code would happen. So finally, let's say that con.dispose and then con.close. Whenever you open a connection, you need to close it. If you leave it open, that can cause your system, when someone who is not having a good intention gets into your system. Okay, all right, okay, so this is what we've done so far. Right, let's go back to the project, its properties, and then start the application from the start screen. Okay, and then let's start it. Okay, so it is loading. Good. Okay, so now we have our login form. Now let me just try hitting on the login and see what happens. Okay, so enter your credentials. Good. So let me say KK. Okay, still means that this one is empty. So let me input the actual credentials and see. So and then the password was the same as the username. I'll just hit on login. Good. So as you can see, we've been able to log in. So when I hit on OK, I'm supposed to be redirected to the dashboard as intended. So let me hit on logout. We are back here. Alright, let me register one more record, maybe Nicholas Maulom, and then let me say N Maulom, and then let me repeat same for the username and then same for password. Then I'll register. Good, record inserted successfully. Right, now let me go back to the login and then say N Maulom. So N Maulom. Now hit on login and I'm supposed to be redirected. Now let me go and do one interesting stuff so that we end the session. Okay, so if the login is successful, when a dashboard is loading, this label here, we need to change it to represents the user that is currently logging. So I'll select the form, double click on it, and then say that whenever the form is loading, say that lbl username dot text is equal to frm login dot txt username dot text dot string. So practically what is happening is that whenever this dashboard is loading, there is a label on it which is this. Take it and then go to the login form. There is a control called txt username. Fetch its text property and then assign it to this. So this is practically what is happening. Okay. Alright. Now let's once again execute it and see. Okay, so and maulum and maulum. Now hit on login. Good. Okay, so you see the username is right here. Now let me go back and then say that enter a record that is not part of the system. So James and then 1 2 3 4 and then hit on login. So incorrect credentials, as you can see. Alright, so this is the end of the session, and I believe that you've learned a lot. You've really learned a lot. There is actually more to do with this particular registration and login stuff. Okay, there are a lot of validations we can do and all those things. The password, we need to even hash it. It needs not to be plain like we are seeing inside our database like so. Okay, it needs not to be plain like that. We need to hash it so that it will take some form of weird characters that are not easily comprehensible. Okay. Alright, so that is it for this tutorial. I believe that you've learned a lot. Don't forget to like this video and then share it as well. If you've not subscribed, kindly hit the subscribe button because it keeps us motivated to produce amazing content for you. Until next time, stay safe and we will meet again. Bye.